Hi everybody, welcome to the 47th episode of Voice of Silence, and as always I would like to begin with a tiny little story. So, once upon a time, as always, there was a mirror and there was a girl, chotu tiny girl, and well, like the rest of us, but this is the story about them. So the mirror used to keep running with the girl, she ran first year, second year, third year, she came to fifth year of her life, and the mirror is running and the girl was like, "Kya hai? Hard yahan se." And she would keep running, but then after a while the mirror came in front of her and she's like, "Dude, what's up? Get out of my way." तो बेचारा टूट गया एक बार, फिर भागती रही, फिर वो फिर आया साइड पे and she's like, "What's up with you?" So the mirror is like, just calm down and listen to me, look at me, na, just look. And that will be called self reflection. And she saw the mirror and there, what did she see? She saw herself, right? And she's like, "Okay, I don't recognize myself." The mirror is like, "Exactly, but trust me, I'm your friend." She's like, "You don't seem to be a friend, so buzz off." So again, she broke the mirror and ran. पर वो mirror छोड़ता नहीं था यार, कभी उनके ऊपर, कभी side पे, कभी इस side पे, कभी यहाँ से देख रहा है, कभी उधर से देख रहा है. Finally, I think in her early years, she's like, "You know what, mirror, mirror, not on the wall, actually right next to her. Why don't we become friends? You show me all sides of me." ठीक है, done. आप मुझे सारी sides दिखाओ. दिखाए. अच्छे तो लगते नहीं है किसी को खुद के साइड्स, क्योंकि कितने चीज़ें पहन के, लुक एट मी, राइट, मेकअप, साड़ी एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, अंदर क्या है वो मिरर ही बताता है. दैट इज़ अ स्टोरी ऑफ निवेदिता मिश्रा, हु इज़ अ 47th स्पीकर, who I think from a very early time in her life chose to self-reflect literally and metaphorically on herself. And why not is what she's going to tell us. But the point is that then she's, I think, finally reached a place of her voice, which is self-sanctuary. What I can kind of decipher it into is that maybe it is a room which is made of mirrors and maybe has veils on it that she chooses. आज ना ये वाली veil हटा के देख लेती हूँ, वरना veil रहती है, but she lives there just as a place of self-sanctuary. So without much further ado, everybody, please let's give a big round of applause to our 47th speaker. Thank you. Thank you, Nivedita, and thank you for being here.
And I'm just so overwhelmed by that wonderful, amazing, very visual and very true introduction. Oh my God.
है ना?
Because, it is so true that sanctuary means turning within, and when you turn within, not only seeing what there is in the mirror, but having the ability to actually look at all the parts and look at all the influences that are making up the parts that are coming from the outside, like you rightly said, how we look, the clothes we wear, the makeup and all of this exterior stuff. But really all the broken, messy bits that are going on inside, that are really not only influencing the decisions that you make, but also affecting how others are really thinking of you and perhaps even suffering because of you.
Yeah.
Right? So, sanctuary is that place which, despite all of that, needs to be built up to give you comfort.
Yes, I agree, and I'm glad that because you and I were chit-chatting and you were talking about some other words and then you said, nahi, it has to be sanctuary. And it hit home in terms of with your story. So I know a lot of people know you here, but a lot of people online and a lot of other people here as well don't know your story. And that's the whole idea behind Voice of Silence, is that let's begin from the top as much as we can.
Yeah.
First, if you can start with an introduction on what you do, and followed by, Nivedita, little bit about your early years.
Okay, so what I do is also evolving, I would say. So I don't like to say I do this because yes, I'm doing this currently, but then tomorrow I may be doing something different. Okay.
So you're not identifying with it.
I am identifying with the fact that I'm a writer and now a podcaster broadly. But these are just roles that I'm currently playing. But in my earlier avatars, if you have to look at it as a profession, I've been a television journalist, I've been a documentary filmmaker, I've been a author, ghostwriter, storyteller, written for, all these NGOs and the development sector, all of that. I've had my own startup in skincare. I've been hugely into personal development and alternative therapies and healing, which is a lot where massive amounts of self-reflection and reveling in it actually comes from. But now I'm a podcaster. I also write, thought leadership articles for brands, and I've ghostwritten a lot for many, many people, from fiction to cookery to management philosophy to esoteric stuff to some amount of all this, economic jargon and all of that. So
That's a wide
all of that,
range.
yeah.
That's a wide range. And I think all of it contributes.
Yes.
Especially contributes to knowledge, of course. But I feel knowledge is great, but it is, I feel, temporary and only used jab tak that transaction is there.
Yes.
Whereas in your case, I feel, knowing you a little bit and considering we've interacted enough, I feel knowledge for you would also translate into self-knowledge, which I feel is a place that stays.
Yeah.
Because it kind of pushes your evolution.
Yeah.
So that wide range would have helped you with so much experience in life and transaction with so many kinds of people and work, that it only, I think, fosters your development.
Development, absolutely.
Was this always the case, though? I know that you're a single child in your, I mean, from your younger years, I'm taking that story.
Yeah.
How is it?
Okay, so
And how was
basically,
it?
yeah. So basically, I would say that this self-reflection and the ability to make friends with the mirror came from a very, very unhappy place and a place of feeling absolutely alone. Because I was a single child of two people who ought never to have actually been married. And, when you're the single child of an unhappy marriage, where, that generation actually had kids because getting married and having children was like a default thing.
Not a choice.
And all of us, even in our generation, we all grew up believing in this happily ever after and fairy tales, and a lot of our generation was waiting for the prince to rescue them. I'm sorry, but that is such a toxic narrative that we all were sort of conditioned to believe. And I think as equally true for men who grew up thinking that, my mother is ideal, or if she isn't, then my wife is going to be ideal, right? And actually, unless the self is as ideal as you want the self to be, there is no other ideal, because everyone else is just a reflection of broken bits of yourself. Right? So, so there was this very unhappy marriage. There was the fact that I felt that my sibling was their bad marriage, and that sibling was actually the more important kid than me. So then where do you go? Because, in the 70s and the 80s, and my father had a transferable job. So we were changing homes and schools and environments. I've been to 8 different schools. I've been thrown around at various relatives and all of that, because my parents were each going through their own drama, So without meaning to, I think I felt very alienated. I mean, the adults in my life didn't mean to, but they didn't know any better. There was just too much drama going on with themselves. So, twice or thrice a year, you're pulled out of school, taken away to your grandparents, and you're hanging around there. Then again, you're taken back to school. You're missing school, you're missing your friends, you're again in strange ecosystems. So I had friends in many different places and all types of people, so from, the servants' children to this one, that one, anyone. So the good part is, you put me anywhere, I can manage. Kaisa bhi khana de do, kaisa bhi rakh lo, kaisa bhi sula lo, kaisa bhi, so I have very few nakhras, So that's the good part that happens. But also the other part that happens is that I figured very early, who is that one constant who is with me no matter what else is happening. Because since I don't know where I'm exactly going to grow, get up tomorrow, I can't predict. The one thing that is with me is a mirror. Okay? And in the mirror, who do I see? I see me. And I can be kind to myself no matter what. Because I realized that I needed kindness. Okay? And I realized that, I was very fortunate that my paternal grandmother, who was obviously like as women in their generation, very, very deeply rooted in religion, spirituality, all of that. And so she had managed to instill in me subliminally a very strong belief in God, and I used to feel, okay, so God has made me, so God is there and I am there. So the mirror, God and I were best friends.
ये तो बढ़िया है, यही तो
हाँ,
है,
यही तो है,
यही लेके
तो
चलते
है।
हैं यार,
तो
यही है बस, और
यही-
कुछ नहीं है.
हाँ.
Mirror, God and me,
Me.
and they're all interchangeable.
They are all
They are the
interchangeable.
same.
Yes, they are
Like
the same.
They are,
Yeah. So I figured very early in life that formula ये वाला चलता है.
ये क्या इस पे, can we just clap? This is बढ़िया formula यार. Really, I
So-
don't usually clap in the middle of the thing, but it's such a like epiphany वाला moment that जी शीशा
मैं और
ऊपर
भगवान,
वाला
या
जो
और
भी
तो कोई
भगवान,
है नहीं,
जो भी बोल रहा है,
बोल रहा है,
energy,
the
whatever.
the creator.
But when did this realization occur to you? In this form.
In
बच्चे
this-
को तो अलग से समझ में
in
आया
this
होगा.
form was actually very early. I must have been about before I turned 4.
Before you turned 4.
Yeah. Before I
Really?
turned 4, yeah.
So that means you were
Because-
that deeply impacted.
Yeah.
So let's say before 4. So I know it'll be
See, my
tough, but what was
earliest
the language?
my earliest memories are from a time that I was 2.
That I can,
Okay, yeah.
that I can
So
imagine.
therefore, like a lot of sentences which I still use today in my head, I've used them since then. So the inner child,
Yeah,
the voice in my
yeah.
head. So by the time I was 4, I think the attachment to my grandmom, the influence of Krishna in particular in my life has always been there, because I used to have deeply I don't know, graphic and spiritual visions of God, and it would not be, I don't know whether it's right or wrong to say, but those visions were more real to me than a lot of my life
reality itself.
that was happening, because those visions were guaranteed.
Yeah.
Those were things that when I was alone, those were there, they were real, and they gave me a thread that, hang on to this, and you'll be fine.
A thread.
They gave me a thread. A thread.
Yeah.
And plus, I also knew that one thing that I could see even then, the formula that worked, part of the formula that worked, was be friendly. Be friendly and talk to as many people as possible. So, in fact, I'm criticized a lot at home that, you just don't shut up. You just start randomly talking to people and just, making friends and sharing stories and saying the most personal, obscene things and asking people very intrusive questions. But that's me. I mean, I've done that all my life.
Yeah.
And I can ask anyone for help. And I do.
That's a very big trait.
And
That's
I do. I can, it doesn't matter to me whether you're a rickshaw puller or you're some person stepping out of a Mercedes. I'll ask you for help if I need. If I need, I will ask. That's it.
That's an amazing quality, Nivedita, because that means that the discrimination is absent. So that means actually you are looking at humans as humans.
Yeah.
That means, and this validates the fact this straight away validates the fact that it's you, your mirror, and yourself, and God.
Yeah.
तो आप तो
Absolutely.
अपने आप हो, बाकी सब सेम है.
हाँ,
तो
exactly.
वो है ही नहीं कि तुम कौन ऐसे
Exactly, है ही नहीं.
It's direct
Doesn't matter.
validation.
Yeah.
Therefore, I will ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that I can validate it because, well, a couple of times, I mean, I know that you asked me for not help like that, like curiosity.
Yeah.
ये कैसे हो रहा है, ये कैसे हो रहा है. Now, I used to think because we are podcasters, so obviously, you know.
No,
But
Kanika.
yes, totally validating it. And that's amazing. I've had a problem.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
actually admit I've had a huge problem for the longest time to ask for help. Sometimes I used to feel, I always felt I can go at it alone. And now I'm breaking down. Like, that's breaking down. You know, I'm like, nahi. So that is something to take away from you. And another thing, moving on to something else but related, you had used the word parentification. I of course understand what it means, but can you please throw light on it for any, and especially vis-a-vis anybody who's in the same scenario, if they can understand and how it impacts the child?
Okay, so parentification is a phenomenon which usually happens with the single child of troubled parents in a troubled relationship, or whether they have relationship issues or addiction issues, or there's so many different issues that can be the problem. But that is one, but it can also happen like, you know, in any child or single child or youngest child or eldest child, so whoever is taking the brunt of the problem, dealing with the problem, and finds in their experience that the parents are unable to cope and unable to be present and provide the emotional needs to themselves, to the family, to everyone else. So the child begins to fill in the gaps very naturally. So it just happens almost, there's a default switch. And believe me, this is not just my story. This is the story of probably every second person here. And I'm sure so many of you sitting here, but you have not perhaps put it into words or thought about it in this way, but you are taking the responsibility of your mother's unhappiness, your father's unhappiness, feeling like you need to compensate because they are fighting, or there is some need that, you know, is missing in them, some part of it is broken, and you are there filling in the gap and thinking that it's okay. And what usually happens in that case is that your own needs and your own experience is stunted. So if someone were to ask you that, what is it that you need? You won't even know, because you will think that
I don't need anything.
I'm fine. You know, they have the problem. You know, this is my dad, the alcoholic, my mother, the so-and-so, my brother, the this, but mera to chal raha hai na, because I'm the one who's doing the work. So I'm okay.
And
so,
and do you think that the I'm okay wala jo person hai, thoda when he or she starts to grow up, have you also noticed, unfortunately, for no fault of anybody, they will also, outsiders will say, you're the strong one.
Yes.
Do you think we have, I'm saying we because well.
Yes.
So, too much of too many people.
Many
people in my life, you know. So, वो पकड़ के चलना पड़ता है, and invariably when you're breaking, falling, but you are the strong one. So, do you think फिर वो carry करना पड़ता है साथ में, and then you don't know otherwise that what is weakness. So it's very interesting, but then you're saying you know how to ask for help. It's very interesting. I'm learning a lot from this.
No. Kanika,
it didn't come easy.
Yeah, it didn't come easy. No, but the thing is, no, actually to me it came very easy. I must say.
क्योंकि आपका बहुत पहले शुरू
मेरा बहुत पहले शुरू हुआ था, so मैं दूसरों को समझाने की कोशिश करती हूँ ये formula. So अच्छा है, maybe other people understand through this. But what I'm trying to say is that if you again go back to self-sanctuary, okay, and you realize कि end में शीशा है, मैं हूँ, भगवान है. That's it. You know, तो मैं strong हूँ तब भी ये है, मैं weak हूँ तब भी ये है, मैं broken हूँ तब भी ये है. Because there is no other. There is no other.
It's true.
The things that others are saying to you, that are hurting, that are judging, that are thing, it is only you.
Yeah.
If, you know, like, अगर जैसे किसी ने आपको चोर बोला, अगर आपने चोरी की नहीं है, you will know that वो तो पागल है, वो तो चोर बोल रहा है मुझे. But अगर आपने चोरी की है, तभी आपको बुरा लगेगा. You know? So it's all a part of that. So this, you know, you have to make a distinction between where the worldly drama is
Yeah.
stopping and where I begin. Now, if see again, the other thing about parentification is that kids who are really have had really troubled childhoods, which is again most of us who are
Yeah.
actually in denial,
Yeah.
right? Most of us for different reasons, and I'm saying that the parents didn't mean it, and particularly देखो हमारा जो generation है, we are a bit of over-parenting, hyper-parenting, wanting to sort out all the ills that our parents didn't sort out, so wanting to compensate in ways that are kind of also crazy and psychotic, because there was a lot of sanity in the benign neglect, you know, of the earlier
Yeah,
generation.
ignorance is bliss in that case.
So
Yeah.
having said that, but the flip side of that was that there were certain critical things that were wrong in their parenting, you know.
Yes.
That nobody, a lot of us don't want to even accept that they
Or
were
even
wrong
address,
because,
yeah.
or address.
Address also.
You know, and plus that we can't take it out on our kids like they did, right? So there is this unmet need of us कि हम तो abuse हो गए और आगे हम करना नहीं चाहते, तो उसका क्या करें?
हाँ, वो
You
limbo
know,
में ना वो
that-
let out नहीं हो
yeah,
रहा है।
exactly.
ना
So
तो
it's
एड्रेस
just-
कर रहे मॉम डैड के साथ कि
exactly.
रेजोल्यूशन हो
No,
जाए,
नहीं।
आगे करना
करना
नहीं
नहीं है,
हम कहाँ
तो
जाएं,
हम
हाँ?
कहाँ जाएं?
तो हम यही
And
करते
who's
रहेंगे
listening to us?
Each
You know?
other.
Yeah, absolutely.
podcast.
Through podcast.
Me for
So
you,
this
you
is-
for me.
So this is the podcast generation. Therefore,
That's why it's taking thank God
so
for that.
therefore, voice of silence. Therefore, whips
Therefore
and chains.
whips and chains. But it's true, but कहीं तो
Yeah.
निकल रहा है.
कहीं तो निकल रहा है.
And at the end of the day, I feel, Nivedita, everything is energy.
Yeah.
The vibrational energy of even the speech and the thoughts that are going out right now will have an impact on somebody for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and that's, I think the intent अगर है तो कहीं ना कहीं land कर ही जाता है, is what I feel.
Absolutely.
Another question then, in the parentification only, were you also carrying guilt?
No.
कोई गिल्ट कभी ये था कि
I
इनकी लड़ाई
actually-
मेरी वजह से हो रही है?
No. Actually, and by the way, they tried a lot.
To make you feel guilty, तुम्हारी
Absolutely.
वजह से शादी में हैं हम,
And, yes.
है ना? That's the typical, that's the textbook.
So that's the textbook. So a lot of people tried to tell me, parents included, that because of you this, because of you. I was like, sorry, Buster, I am not buying that, because I have my mirror, I have my God, and I have myself. So guilt is something I have never
Never?
had. Not one day of guilt. And I say this, I'm not lying. Really, I say this even to my children, that if I drop dead today, please know I'm guilty of nothing. Okay?
That's-
Because I have made my views known far and wide, even when my parents did things that I thought were wrong. Whether I was 2, 3, 4, 5, 50, I have told them, listen, I don't agree. I think you're an ass to do this to me. I will suffer,
This
but
is
you're
amazing.
wrong. Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
next level. No, Nivedita, it is. It is, and I'll tell you what all things were actually working against you. This is my viewpoint. The time, that generation, 70s and early 80s, उस टाइम पे तो भसड़ी मची हुई थी यार हर जगह यार. Shit man, the time when we were born, पूरा भसड़ मचा हुआ था. India was in भसड़. Like पेरेंट्स को समझ नहीं आ रहा है, स्कैसिटी से अबंडेंस की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं. इंडिया की इकोनॉमी इज आल्सो डूइंग दैट. आई डोंट ब्लेम ऑल दैट. सो दैट वाज वर्किंग अगेंस्ट यू.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it, you being a girl,
yeah.
that must be working against you. Standing up for yourself,
Absolutely.
how is that even allowed? And ऊपर से being a single child, no sibling to kind of at least bear the brunt
No,
or
you know,
bully.
the thing is, see, I like my family says, you know, you're very dramatic because you talk to people. I used to go around telling people कि मेरे साथ ये हो रहा है, and they were like, नहीं, your parents must love you very much. You are imagining this. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. And I was like, listen, I'm telling you, ये हो रहा है मेरे साथ. You know, and
ये बड़ा
people would think that I was making up stories because I was an imaginative child, you know. So I would tell them, no, this is not my imagination. These are actually
happening.
hardship situations, and I need someone to stand up for me and like
Yeah.
just rescue me and take me away. Will you? And they were like, no. But
No, because everybody wants to uphold the
uphold.
system, because if it
Yeah.
starts breaking,
तो
देखेंगे कैसे और देखोगे तो कुछ करना पड़ेगा. तो वो थोड़ी ना करना है. तो and वो आज भी, by the way, is in fact it's deeper. It's more deep rooted today. The system needs to be supported.
Yeah.
There are hardly very few disruptors, and they are the ones, they have to bear the brunt, the disruptors.
So again, the thing is, this is not a place where I want to say that, my parents did anything to me, or, or I want to place blame
Yep.
at anyone's doorstep. It is the situation that I'm trying to talk about. So again, I'm asking all of you and everyone who's watching, this is not about placing blame on
Yep.
any person. This is about sharing a situation where a child who does not have the words, does not have the resources, does not have the privilege of even like coming on a platform like this, to actually openly say that this is my pain, this is what I am feeling.
Yeah.
And has to be taking all these narratives of, oh, your father loves you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, your mom loves you very much, and you're the strong one. So, and I would be like, okay, and where do I go with all this, information? Because this is what I need, this is what I'm not getting. So where do I go? And because there was no place to go, there was the mirror, God and me.
It's
so
amazing.
again and again and again, in every context, I have found, but I must say that there was a period after I turned 10. And actually, that's the time that my parents, for the first time, they actually split up, and they thought that they were going to divorce. Then the divorce didn't happen. But anyway, so when that split first happened, I was put in a hostel. And that transition period is the time that I felt that, okay, now God is actually not on my side temporarily, I felt,
That must have been very painful, yeah.
So I actually remember this discussion in the mirror and saying that, look, I think you've got this formula wrong. I think I need to figure this out myself, right?
Shit, that loss
So,
of faith for that momentary loss of faith would have been heartbreaking.
So that period, so I said, I'm going to figure this out for myself, but we'll come back. We'll circle back.
We'll revisit
I said we'll circle back. But that loss of faith actually lasted about 24 years.
Oh my God.
24 years. I'm not saying that I stopped believing in God, but I stopped turning to Him for every little thing, And then it's only after my son was born, and the whole thing came, because, when as a child people would ask me, ki, beta, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say that, I want a happy marriage, I want a house, I want 2 kids and 2 dogs. Okay, so with all of the drama, by 32 I was done. Okay, so that led to another crisis. Ki, ab to ho gaya? Ab kya karu main? Where do I go? So that led to another, एक तरफ postpartum चल रहा है, एक तरफ ये चल रहा है कि oh my God, now what, no game plan, और वो किसको बताए? That's when I said, hey, I think
Brahmastra. Let's revisit that.
Let's revisit that. So then for the next 10 odd years, again, there was this whole deep dive into spirituality, internalizing, and a whole lot of, therapies and retreats. And I was organizing events also for various healers and writing for them and all of that. Yeah.
But that means, Nivedita, it just keeps on proving the fact over and over, that the ages from 2 to 10 in your case, but I would go ahead and say even till 14, 15
Yes.
are the most crucial. Because
Crucial.
see, wo yaad hai, then beech mein, I'll also admit that from the age of 14, 15 के बाद जो life में मेरे जो तमाशे हुए हैं ना, it's gone like, what's going on? And now, I turned 43 like couple of months ago. अब जाके वो आ रहा है. Okay, and I'm only revisiting the time before I was 14. I'm like, that's who I am.
That's who you are.
Literally I'll say it, I have a tiny doll of myself because I went through a therapy where you're supposed
Excellent.
to. She sits in front of me every day.
Excellent.
She's the one I look at and I'm like, क्या करना है? क्या लग रहा है? She'll tell that ये. एक मसाबा का कोई प्रोग्राम आया था, आई थिंक उसमें भी दे हैड वेरी ब्यूटिफुली शोन दिस, आई एम फॉरगेटिंग मसाबा समथिंग where she's always walking with a little girl, her tiny.
Yes.
It helps because
It
that's
helps
your
a
truth.
lot. That is
That's
your
your
truth.
truth. At
That's
least
who you
खुद
are.
तो own कर लो उसको.
हाँ.
And I think in your case, the brave, and it's called bravery, when there's lack of fear. आपके अंदर ऐसी निडरता is not to go out and achieve things and, you know,
Yes.
scale mountains. वो भी है, not taking it away. But I think the bigger thing is to scale your own
Yeah.
mountain.
Yeah.
In your case, निडरता I see because the mirror, you and the ऊपर वाला सच बोलते हैं एक दूसरे को. I think सच बोलना is the biggest निडरता that
Absolutely.
anybody can display
Yeah.
to themselves first, you know, and वो
truth
भी टूटते
is
रहते हैं.
unkind, yeah. The truth
Very
can
unkind.
very brutal.
Very unkind.
Very brutal.
Oh my God.
It can rip you and this thing. But the sooner you do it, the
It's
better
better.
it is.
It's better.
Yeah, it gets worse. The more you avoid it,
वो
the worse it gets.
छोड़ेगा नहीं. वो छोड़ेगा नहीं. वो ऊपर आपके भारी होता रहे, वो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप भाग सकते हो उससे.
Absolutely.
It'll catch up. It always does. And you were right, at the beginning of the podcast, of the talk show, you had said that it not only affects the person, it starts to affect everybody around. So I think as human beings, and I say it, I don't know, every time with so much force, the only thing we can do is to keep working on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because it starts to radiate around, you know.
Yeah.
We were speaking about Shan abhi thodi der pehle.
Yeah.
Shan is one of our speakers and also sitting in the audience. It's just how you take adversities.
Absolutely.
Now, just the thought of Shan is something that gives me strength.
Yes.
मैं कौन सा उसकी जिंदगी में उसके साथ उसका हाथ बटा रही हूँ. The thought of Nivedita gives me, आज आपने बोल दिया है कि वो होता है ना, तुम मैं और क्या था यार वो
तन्हाई.
ad? नहीं, तन्हाई नहीं, दारू. क्या ऐड था वो? एक ऐड था.
Bagpiper.
हाँ, आप.
Bagpiper.
What was the tagline?
Bagpiper.
है ना, आज बैठेंगे 3 यार.
आप में और bagpiper.
आप में और आज से यही होगा, 3 यार बैठेंगे. थैंक यू. You know, 3 यार बैठेंगे अभी. मिरर्स और भी बड़े ले आते हैं अभी.
हाँ.
And do that.
Yeah.
How has life been since the second phase? Like, you know, it's been about 16, 17 years since then. Now do you feel a little more of yourself? Like closer to who you are?
You know, so the thing is that in the phase after I kind of took a break from this, you know, the mirror, the sanctuary, it was a phase where I was again invested in the outside world. So I fell in love with my high school sweetheart, you know, and then school, college, we started working together, we were journalists, you know, got married, had children, all that drama. So I think, you know, that also, in a sense, takes you away from you because you're fulfilling a role, right?
And I feel it's required.
And it's required. And it's required. And it was also, remember, it was my KRA to myself, na?
Yeah.
Ki ye to karna hai, like I have to do this. Right? So I have to do the marriage, the 2 dogs, the this, the that.
2 children.
So the 2 children and all of that. So then, you know, there were miscarriages, there was baby loss, and there was a whole lot of drama around that also. But having done that whole spiel, and then when that feeling that, okay, now my time.
Yeah.
So the way you own yourself, I think the second time round is more authentic and informed because you are no longer helpless, right?
Yeah.
You're an adult, or you have the resources, at least mentally, emotionally.
The tools.
The tools. And for me, fortunately, because I told you, I went into all this healing, personal development. I did some really crazy retreats where, you know, I saw other people having such huge panic attacks and, you know, projecting on the teachers and all of that. And I was helping with the organization, right, of this. And the first time it actually happened, I had, in fact, I had left my son, my children were 2 and 6. And I had left them to go on this retreat, and I was the organizer. And I must say that my husband really encouraged me that he knew, because since he's been with me from school, he knows me like nobody else does, right? And he's been witness to a lot of my drama. So he said, go because you need to go, right? And to my kids, I had told them that, look, everyone has a job profile. I explained this word right in the beginning. I said, and it's mama's job profile to go sometimes and do work. And it's your job profile to get on with, your school
stuff.
and your stuff and whatever. So actually, my daughter was old enough to really love the word, because she realized that when mama goes off, then dad's kinder to her, spoils her, indulges her, all of that. But the rest of humanity was actually asking me, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? You're leaving. Yeah, how selfish. And I remember someone actually told me, listen, you're going to have a psychotic break like this if you just go off, because what happens if you go off and you realize that actually you never want to go back again? I was like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I know myself.
I
know myself enough to know that that's not going to happen. But I do remember that there was one night when this other person I was sharing the room with, actually, she had a psychotic break. She had an episode, and she was totally projecting. And she was actually also a new mother, and it was her first night away from her baby, and so understandable that she just went totally cuckoo. And in that, I did start second guessing a bit. So I think at 2 a.m, I called my husband and I said, listen, I'm panicking a bit. What do I do? Should I just run now? And I think what he said to me at that point really gave me the agency to stay back, because he said, something, you can come back, or you can stay. Remember that the choice is yours. And
that's very empowering.
And I think the fact that he said that at that time, I will always be very grateful to him, because again, choice is an element that we don't think in this kind of victimization of our lives. We don't think we have a choice normally.
Yes.
In the stories that we tell ourselves about our inner thing.
That is why the phrase, I was not left with the choice.
I was not left with a choice.
You always have a choice.
Always
left with a choice.
Yeah. It is your decision.
Yeah.
It is whether you choose to procrastinate, blame others, blame circumstances, blame, family, or, patli gali se nikalna, or you say, no, every day I make this choice.
Yeah.
Own it.
Own it. Ownership.
So the ownership I had that night of saying, no, I'm going to just watch her.
That's why I said Nidartha. That's why I said Nivedita Nidartha, because you chose to see how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
And were not scared of what you'll find, yet had the faith in yourself because of those 3 people, including yourself, that nahi, I'm okay, but I want to see how deep it goes into. And obviously it must have shown you some truth at that point, which you were unafraid to see and accept. That's what I'm saying. It's Nidartha that is coming from you, So that is one. The other question that I have then, with all this work that you've been doing on yourself, I will only talk about parenting and marriage. It must have very beautifully translated, or were there moments where you were misunderstood? Because, and I'll tell you why, our growth happens, although between 2 people agar dekhen graph, to linear hi hota hai. Khud ka is never linear. But let's say your growth and my growth, if we make like a chart, to aise dikhega ki okay, Nivedita is a little higher, like that, Now Kanika will have to catch up. Kanika will not recognize your new avatar. But Nivedita, let's say I'm a family member, but Nivedita has moved ahead, but is seeing better, but is not the same. Did you face any of that with your family members, only your children and your husband?
So, the thing is that because my family, particularly my husband, and I go back such a long time, and I would say in many ways he is my best friend, right?
That's amazing.
So we have seen each other's broken bits. So the flip side of that is also that my daughter is sitting here and like rolling her eyes because she's seen the fights, and she's seen the lack of whatever, the smoothness and friction which happens in all relationships. But so I think as a family, we have discussed very openly all the things that.
Do you think that's the key?
Yes.
Communication?
Absolutely.
And can you explain what communication means in your words?
So, in my words, I think communication is the art of presenting your truth in a harmonious way that does not interfere with another person's truth. Because what usually happens is that when we think of communication, we think of like a relationship in a family particularly. If I want this and you want that, and the thing is, I learned how not to communicate from my parents, because I think my parents could not get on the same wavelength ever, and so therefore they were talking completely different languages. So I learned very early because I used to watch them, right? And I used to say, okay, but if she had just said this way,
he would have
he would have
understood.
not
Not even
necessarily understood that, but the drama perhaps
Yeah.
would have not been so much.
Yeah.
So I think even when we kind of disagree, and we often do, and my children also are, see, one thing I taught my children very early is that no fear is acceptable. No
Yeah.
fear is acceptable. So whatever you are feeling, say it. Whatever the reality is, say it. I mean, we have to man up and accept it. That's what families are for. So
That's
we
the
have-
translation.
yeah.
That answers my question
Yeah.
on your getting more aware and gone through so much of self-reflection has translated into you providing that space to your children to say no fear. Do you know how tough that is for most people to listen to the truth from their own children?
Yes.
Boss, आप ये नहीं दे रहे मुझे, ये थोड़ी ना सुनना है. Parents को, I'm talking about parents because this is what we're talking about. Children are children. They are tiny people. They don't understand.
So
it's
talking
very
about
beautifully.
that,
yeah.
talking about that, in that thing, I must tell you this little incident which illustrates this. So when my son was again about 2, and we were living in Greater Noida. So again, it was this existence where one is trapped out of the ecosystem that one's familiar with, cut off everything. So I used to get like after the whole day with one crying child. He hadn't yet started school, and pe all the time. And so and that was a particularly like sort of edgy, irritating day, and we had been like sort of at each other. And so, the maid had taken my daughter, I think, down to, no, they were there, the maid and my daughter. And so, anyway, so by around 6:30, I said, listen, I'm going to take a walk. I told my son, मैं जा रही हूँ walk करने, mama, that typical, I said, I'm going to take a walk and I don't care, you just, deal with it.
For some time, yeah.
So I wore my shoes and I went off. And when I came back, he saw me and I took off my shoes and he says, अब मैं walk करूँगा, and he says, all तुम, and I remember this, he says, all तुम यहाँ बैठ के लोगे, so then he got into my shoes and stomped up and down the living room like this, and I said, okay, this is therapy. So I started crying, "Ay, मेरा बच्चा चला गया, and I can't tell you how happy and delighted he was. Because I realized that's what he needed at that
This
time.
is amazing.
Yeah.
This is like a tiny lesson in
Listen.
parenting.
Yeah.
It is.
It is, yeah.
It is. It is.
It is.
You chose your truth.
Yeah.
But then when he chose
Chose
his
his
truth,
truth,
you didn't say no.
Huh.
No authority. You were like,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then dramatized it a bit.
Yeah.
समझ आ
Yeah.
that यार उसका क्या हुआ होगा उसके brain के अंदर? नहीं, seriously.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
really
this is
amazing. That was
amazing.
really amazing. to
This is
see.
just too cute and amazing, very effective, very, very effective tool.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
It's just amazing. So now we move on to a little digression, but still related, and then we will come to the final Apka voice. You mentioned, yeah, this is a woman thing, but I want to relate it with you as well, that you spoke about menopause. We've already had a whole episode,
Yeah.
so we're not going to speak about menopause, but you also spoke about women, menopause, sexuality.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about this?
Okay, so now I think sexuality is something that, you know, every woman gets thrust with. How she appears, how desirable she is. She's like this walking product of desire. I mean, that's how she looks, the scent she exudes, how, the sexual attraction vibes that are happening with every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the road. Whether it's like some young boy or some uncle, everybody is kind of, checking her out in terms of, how her top story, bottom story, and everything else looks, and how whatever she is. So I think it's a big bloody burden when you want to be seen as a human being,
Yeah.
doing human stuff and being on an equal plane. And I think I would really, whereas there is this theory about porn actually helping men to deal with their desires in a sort of healthy way or whatever, but I think there is a certain monitoring of the self that is required in men to say, no, I won't do this. I will stop objectifying the woman just in terms of, her body parts and her so-called desirability. I will try to give her the respect that she deserves, because never mind my story and what my mother did or what my wife didn't do or what XYZ, never mind that. But as a human being, I want to be treated equally, and 50% of the population at the end of the day are women.
Are women.
And they have not been given due importance. I mean, even in an office scenario, I mean, there is so much mansplaining going on.
Yeah.
I mean, if people are talking, there is always a man repeating to you what you already know.
Yeah.
All the giddy time. Before you can find the words, he has developed his narrative and thrust it on you again and again and again and again. And you're like, hold on, Buster, And meanwhile, you're being checked out, you're being objectified, you're being... And what I want to say is that because sexuality or the problem of women being viewed as sex objects starts so early, even in childhood, that, because of some of the experiences that I had, growing up, just fending all sizes and shapes of men off, like as we all have done.
In different intensities.
So in different, yeah. So, even when I was bringing up my daughter, for example, I told her, look, when you're in the house, you can roam around in your chaddi banyan, whatever it is. But when you step
out of the door,
there has to be this thing about what you will wear and what you will not wear. And sometimes, even when she was like 11, 12, whatever, she used to tell me, oh, look at, the other kids, they walk around with this, that, and the other, and you don't let me. And I said, never mind, let that be, something I have done to you, I don't mind.
It's such a dichotomy, though.
It's a total
that you
dichotomy.
believe this.
Yeah. And you can't.
And you have to teach your, like, I don't understand the education system at all.
Yeah.
Yet I'm telling my child of late that 4 साल अभी आपको game को खेलना है, अगर आपको वहाँ जाना है. But I don't like the education system. It's the same dichotomy. On the one hand, it's the men that, it's a choice. Like you said,
it's a choice.
भैया तुम जहाँ से आ रहे हो ना, मेरा problem नहीं है.
Exactly.
उसको story लेके don't misbehave with women.
Exactly.
It's your bullshit.
Yeah.
You deal with it.
Yeah.
There is an option today. There's a choice. Like you said, I will
go
not...
for therapy, yeah.
What exactly?
Yeah, go for therapy.
That porn देखना है, porn से मेरा निकला. How weak are you?
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, we
what
agree.
What a slave are you?
Yes, totally.
What a slave are you?
And we all have sexual desires. Agreed, you are built differently. Agreed. Get to bloody know it.
Yeah.
That, I'm built differently.
This is what
How
I mean.
can I release?
Yeah.
What are the best ways? Find out.
Yeah.
Cars ढूंढ रहे हो, cricket देखे जा रहे हो,
phones
देख रहे हो, उसमें time pass.
उसमें time pass है.
And you're not realizing that you are affecting, like you said, 50% of the world.
50% of the world, your own children.
Your own children, they are watching
Yeah,
it.
they're watching it.
This is a very, this needs an, I want speakers on this. Log aate nahi hai. I want men to come and speak about this.
Please.
People just don't want to.
Yeah, I know. Men will not.
Men, obviously.
Don't have the
वो
balls.
थोड़ी
I'm
ना-
sorry. I have more balls than most men.
See,
Same. Yeah, absolutely.
they probably need to develop vaginas. That's when they'll understand
Absolutely.
things better.
Absolutely.
That's just the thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel. तब थोड़ा दर्द समझ में आएगा क्या होता है, पावर समझ में आएगा, शक्ति समझ में आएगी, बदतमीजी कम होगी थोड़ी सी. You know, is what I feel. I think two women are going a little. Let's go back. I think any woman. I think I'm representing all women. किसी औरत को यहाँ ले आओ भैया, अंदर से काली माता ही निकलेगी. I feel. I have not met a single woman who's disagreed.
Yeah.
That no. They should watch more porn. Shut up. So anyway, so now getting back to the final, let's consolidate it. We are getting back to the self-sanctuary bit. Your voice is self-sanctuary. What would you like to say to the world? Why is it your voice? And what would you like to leave the speakers with as a voice of silence, which is your voice of sanctuary? Nivedita Mishra.
Okay, so I would like to say that embrace your inner child. Really go back, go back, open an album, pick out a picture of you when you were 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever age that you feel you can most resonate with, where most of your memories and impressions come from. Make friends with that picture. Stick it up in the mirror. So that makes it easier. So when you look in the mirror, you can see that picture, you know that picture is you, and then develop a relationship with that picture, okay? And every morning when you've just woken up, and before you just go to sleep, just have a chat. You know, talk to that picture. What do you want? What is it that you want today? What can I do for you today? How can I help? Literally. And before you go to sleep, ask that kid, how was your day, baby? What do you need? What do you need from me? That's step one, because not everyone can bring in the divine power right away.
Yeah.
So first, I think, make friends with that picture, you know. And I think, you know, at the end of our lives, you know, what idea I had very early in life, again when I was 2 or 3, is that one day I'm going to be 75 and sitting on my rocking chair. I don't know why. I thought of a rocking chair. I don't know why. But I just felt that when I'm sitting on my rocking chair and looking back on my life, I don't want to feel I wasted a single day.
Lived it up.
Yeah.
On your terms.
So on my terms and in my truth.
In your truth.
In my truth.
Yeah.
So self-sanctuary, I think, is the only way to do that. You know, because if you can't own your truth, if you are fighting shy of your truth to yourself in the mirror, then how can anyone else believe you, love you, trust you, or even listen to you? Right?
Well,
so I think that's pretty much what I want to say.
thank you. It's beautiful. Thank you. There are a lot of takeaways. And that picture, incidentally, I'm meeting my parents today. They have the albums. आज
का दिन.
मतलब मैं तो कर चुकी हूँ therapy, but I'm going to get those pictures from. It's a wonderful tool, Nivedita, and if I have your permission, I'm going to use that for my counseling as well. It is an absolutely wonderful. And you also said divinity लाना मुश्किल होता है, meditate करना मुश्किल होता है. It's not that easy. It's so easy.
This is so easy.
You're seeing yourself literally. वो देखो फिर mirror के पास जाओ sorted और फिर एक बार.
That's step 2. ये कर लो, level 1, level 2.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.